You know, Murphy's Law says what can go wrong will go wrong, although where I come from we call it something slightly different. But I don't think it's just about what can go wrong. I really do think sometimes it's also about timing. So yes, where I live, we've had pretty high winds over the last few days, and a part of my fence has finally collapsed, which isn't a major problem other than the fact that we're a couple of days away from Christmas. And I know that if I leave this without doing anything to it over the next few days, it's just going to have a knock-on effect, and the other posts, there's a good chance they'll come down as well. Now I know why it's collapsed, because the contractors that put it in, they put it in before the garden went in, which was a long time before I bought the house. But when the garden went in, they then increased the level. So the bottom of these posts are totally surrounded in topsoil. So that's where it's gone, right at the bottom there, where it's just surrounded in topsoil. So it's not got a chance at all. And really the contractors were really quite naughty of putting this fence in before they put the topsoil around it. So they've been just sucking up the moisture over the last 3-4 years, and it was sort of predictable that this was going to happen, and it's finally gone at the worst time possible, a couple of days before Christmas, which doesn't really give you a chance to fix anything at all. And as I said, if I don't fix this, then if we have wind over the next few days, the next one will go, and the next, I mean, they're all going to go in the next maybe 6 to 12 months. But I'd rather not find this fence on the ground on Christmas Day. So today I'm going to stabilise this. A couple of days before Christmas is not the time to start fencing and putting up a new fence and getting materials. And as you can see, it's still pretty blustery around here, so I don't think it's going to get any better. So what I need to do is stabilise this in some way. Now I think there's 3 ways of doing it. Firstly, if you've got one fence post that's gone over, you can support it from the ones either side by putting a piece of timber horizontally between the 2 good ones. But I've got 3 that have gone over here, so the piece of timber I would need would have to be about 30 foot long, so that's impractical. The other thing you can do is put a stake down into the ground right next to the fence post, if you can miss the concrete foundation, and pin the post to it. Well, I haven't got any stakes like that. I definitely haven't got any metal stakes to do that. So the third way of doing it is using some timber. And to get the strength to stop this moving and falling over, it's all about triangles. Yes, triangles. You see, in engineering, triangles is basically what gives us strength in structures. I know this isn't engineering, it's only a fence, but it's the same thing. You could call it bracing instead. You see, if you've got squares, you might recognise that this is my little mock-up of a fence gate that I did maybe a couple of years ago. Squares have got this tendency to wibble wobble all around because they're not braced. But if we can put some bracing in to actually make a square into a triangle, then suddenly you've got an incredibly strong structure that really doesn't want to move. And that's why we put bracing on things like doors, to stop them falling. And just have a look up in your loft. It's full of triangles. That's what keeps your roof from collapsing. So if I just explain to you exactly what I'm going to do, and it's very simple. This is the ground, and this is the fence post that I want to support with a feather edge on the outside. So all I'm going to do to try to make this into a triangle, to make it as strong as possible, is to put a stake in here, maybe 3/4 of a metre, a couple of foot away, and then put a diagonal brace in here, made out of timber, pinned here and pinned here. And suddenly we now have a triangle here that's going to stop that going one way or the other. It's very, very simple, but that triangle is going to give a post, even if it's broken at the bottom, a huge amount of strength, 10, 20 times more strength than if it's just stuck in the ground in what we call a cantilever, which means it's fixed at the bottom and the top can move in the wind. So all I need to do now is find some material that I can make these stakes out of and this diagonal bracing. And it doesn't need to be treated timber. This is only going to be there for 2 or 3 months until I get round to fixing the fence properly. So whether it's treated or not, it's not going to rot in 2 or 3 months. And at the end of the day, it's all going to end up on the bonfire probably anyway. So I'm going to look through my stockpile, have a look round, see what I can find, and maybe cut some stakes. This corner next to my miter saw is where all my offcuts live, and although it's incredibly useful to have offcuts of every different shape, size and thickness, it's now grown excessively, and in the new year I plan to sort out this area and improve my whole miter saw setup as well. With a bit of rummaging, I managed to find 3 pieces of 3x2 CLS that I can now use for stakes if I put a point on the end. I would naturally use a miter saw for this, although I'm sure proper woodworkers would criticise me for such a dangerous, sketchy cut like this. But you can also quite easily use a circular saw if you have one, or go old school and by taking not much longer, just cut these by hand. Any surplus fencing materials from previous jobs or fencing I've just taken down, I store outside but under cover. So I now have a selection which is really handy to call on for jobs just like this. You'd be pleased to know it started to rain as well, hence the hat. There's nothing like emergency work just before Christmas, is there? So that's going to connect onto that like that with a couple of nails, probably on that side, just because it's easier. And then at the top end, just onto the side of the post. Although that post isn't level at the moment, so as that post comes in, this will probably want to go up. So unless I cut it, it's probably going to be about that angle, which is about 60 degrees, which isn't a problem. I mean, 45 degrees is probably the best, but whether it's down at 30 or up at 60 is really not the end of the world. I think you just need to get something 45 degrees plus or minus and just get it nicely pinned in, and then it's going to have half a chance of keeping that upright. So I think I'm going to also concentrate on getting the posts up level before I do anything around the other side with these feather edge boards or anything. If I can get the posts up, then I'm sort of 90% of the way there. Whoops, I've got a hole in my fence. So I think I'll concentrate on this one, which is the easiest one to do first. I might have to take some of this board off. So if that goes about there, are we vertical? This is being pushed against the wind just as I hold it. So we're vertical about there. So I'm just going to pop a nail in there, more just to hold it rather than anything. Get that in. But you can see I'm not putting the nail in all the way. That means I can easily take it out and adjust it. I'll just stick a nail in there, sort of left-handed like. Not so good left-handed. This is where I really need a nail gun. I wonder if Father Christmas could be bringing me a nail gun, because this is where really I now need to do 3 things at the same time. So that is level there. The best I can do is hold it roughly in place. So how do I... Hammering left-handed is really very difficult. Okay, that's like half in. Let's just check it. Ironically, I've gone too far. Okay, that's level. Right, let's finish this off. So that's one nail in both. I'll just put a second nail in, one top and bottom. And all I'm using is 2-inch galvanised nails. Once again, this is only going to be in for 2 or 3 months of the year. So you don't really need to worry about what types of nails. They're all going to last 2 or 3 months, that's for sure. Let's just put another one in there. I just bent on the way in. This is why I need a nail gun, you see. People don't understand. So there you go, there's the first one in. It's about 45 degrees, but not quite, it doesn't really matter. And that is absolutely solid because it's been held by this. So that will definitely last over the next few months and suddenly gives it a really good purchase just to hold up in the wind. That didn't take very long. I've just got 2 more to do. They may be a bit more difficult because the fence is actually leaning over, so I might need a bit more muscle. There's nothing like trying to hold 3 things at the same time. It's like being in the jungle, this is. So this is essentially what I'm doing on the post side. I've just cut that just to fit nicely. Put 3 nails in there. Look, that's absolutely solid now. That's not moving in or out at all. And it's not, can't move laterally because I've got this cant rail here. So that's like just a little bit of bracing. It's amazing how solid that suddenly is. Then you come down to the other end. I've just put it on the other side there, and that's pretty solid as well. That should stay there quite nicely for the next 2 or 3 months. So you can see that might not be perfect. Actually, it looks a lot better than it used to. And that's going to stand up for a little bit of time over the winter. So now I think I need to go around the other side and just make sure that these panels are on and fixed. Ooh, nasty, prickly stuff. You know, there's one thing about doing DIY, there's another thing about doing it one-handed because you've got to hold a camera in the other hand. I hope you appreciate some of this. Okay, that I don't think is going anywhere now. Okay, I'll just put those back there. I think that'd be good enough. So I'd just like to thank a friend for giving me these Milwaukee gloves. These are cold weather gloves, so they're insulated, and I must say when it's cold they're a lot better than those yellow ones that I normally use. They came from a friend that has quite a lot of Milwaukee stuff, if you know what I mean. You may notice also that I'm actually using the wrong type of screws here, but once again they're only here for another 2 or 3 months, and I've been amazed how important the right type of screws are for things like fencing. If you just use normal timber screws, it's shocking how long before they just seem to rot away. So if you're doing fencing, definitely go for the treated screws, else before you know it, things will just be falling off. I mean, within 6 months maybe. Probably whatever's in the wood, whatever tantalising they're using for the wood, just tends to eat standard screws away. So this is where you could do with a nail gun. Did I mention I could do with a nail gun? Right. That is good enough. Although I might just pop another one in here. I don't think that's going anywhere for the next couple of months, eh? So that is a nice tidy half-hour job, and hopefully should save me from even more grief and stop the whole thing blowing down over the Christmas period. As I said, it's not hugely straight, but it's good enough for the next couple of months until we get round to spring. That is surprisingly strong, seeing that it's actually rotted right at the bottom. But with that brace on there, it should stay exactly where it is. And we're back to where we started half an hour ago, but that is a lot more solid. And for half an hour's work, I think that's worth it, because if I don't do that, the whole lot's going to fall over and I'm going to end up with even more work on my hands in the new year. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please have a great Christmas. DIY always pops up at the wrong time of year, but at least I can do it myself rather than waiting a few weeks to get someone in. So have a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll do it all again in 2024.